Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss pre-market video for Tuesday, April 2nd, 2019. I am Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Thank you for joining me this morning, and thank you for joining me last evening for the monthly market outlook for April 2019. We did a fantastic review of some of the winning trades here and winning opportunities that we found and prospected in the first three market outlooks of the year for Q1. A lot of great opportunities that we found and also traded. I talked about my entries, techniques, my trade management, where I was wrong, and all those various factors there with regards to those trades and those opportunities. And then we also prospected for a ton of new opportunities as well, both short and longer term opportunities that can go from anywhere from a week or two all the way up to the rest of the quarter. So a lot of great opportunities. 59 minutes in length. It's a great recap here of Q1 with also some fantastic candidates and prospects to look for in Q2, so check it out. Alright, here it is. You can see the ES right here in the daily time frame continuing to trend up. Every pullback has still been a buying opportunity. After this sharp rejection here, we had bears defending the 2835, 2840 zone. And I mentioned that just because bears are defending doesn't mean they win. Any push above it would trigger the buy stops. These bears failed and the buy stops are coming out. Down here, bulls were able to successfully defend prices at 2800 and eventually ran the stops to the upside. Now we're at new highs. Obviously everything's flowing up. The PIMAs are flowing up. Higher value relationship for the month. We're not testing the pivot range just yet though. It's kind of started like it did here in February, where it kind of went up first, rather March it went up first, and then it did a deep dive into the bottom of the pivot range and rallied. There's still the potential that we could pull back at some point later on in the month and hit that pivot range before we go higher. Key level here to watch is going to be the previous month's high price. That's in the 64 zone, 2864s, 2866. And any failure to hold that, especially intraday, say 65 intraday, a failure to hold that zone, or 60 perhaps, even that zone right there, would suggest that this thing could rotate a little bit lower. But for the most part, even if we did pull back here, expect bulls to kind of try to defend below and push this thing up another leg. It's been an uptrending market on a long-term basis and also in a very short-term basis. So pullbacks, morning pullbacks have been bought. We did have a great little push beyond the previous month's high. Again, continue to watch that level to see how much more upside we see, because a failure to hold 2860 rotates this thing a little lower. The Nasdaq here's the NQ, looking very similar. Again, great uptrending structure throughout the year so far. A pullback, the recent pullback to the pivot range, or rather the PIMA trigger zone, has been defended. Right here, the 7450 level, that's the level we mentioned before that bears were going to try and keep offered. And this squeeze here, the close above the midpoint of that day, that sent prices higher through that area. And now we could be looking at much more upside ahead. Again, the key zone here to watch on any pullback, 7450, that could be a great retest from below or from above to retest and defend that pivot and continue higher in the near term. So short term, again, any pullback towards 7450 could be a near-term buying opportunity for a continuation higher. Failure to hold that level or rejection at these highs, that could change the tide. We could be in a range market at that point. All right, let's take a look now at crude oil. You'll notice here with crude oil, we've had fantastic trending moves here. This was a great move. This was a great move, and so far this has been a great move. And it all started, every single one of these moves started with a solid rejection low. A great rejection low right there, and also there. This was a failed low that ended up pushing higher. A nice go right away. This was another failed low right here at support and trigger zone and all that, and it pushed higher. And then this was another one as well. One thing that I've noticed on each of these rotations is that the very next day there's no pullback to the mid. It is open and go. It is open and go, open and go. And for the most part, that open represents the after hours open, and then it's just mostly higher from there. There's no pullbacks here recently, and it's been straight up, and now straight up. Very strong stuff for this trend here recently. We're above 61s now, and we are approaching the next upside target. Recall when we had this rejection right here, I mentioned that there's two upside targets that I think we can reach. I think we go get the 60-65 target. We finally got it. And I also think we can get the 62.70 target, so we're still working on that one. Right here, 60.98, that's the FOMC key level from November 8th. Any pullback into that zone could be a great little buy for a continuation towards 62.70 and beyond. Lastly, let's take a look here at gold futures. You'll notice here with gold futures, price continues to find modest new lows here over the last few days, lower highs, lower lows. So ever since this day when offered here, again, lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, and also lower lows all the way. The one key level to watch is going to be 1280. You can see that's also the bottom of this impulse sell-off. The midpoint here is 1315. So we could theoretically drop to and below 1280 here, and that would be the best zone to watch for a trap and a return back to 1315 to 1320. And with the potential to go all the way to the top of the range, 1350. So that's what I'm looking for here. I think this has more downside here until it tests an edge. And once it does that, maybe some sort of rejection can bring this thing back up to 1320 in the near term. Until then, everything's kind of flowing to the downside. We have a lower value relationship here after multiple uptrending months. We had a close that was also in kind with that lower value relationship, and that suggests more downside, at least initially. 1270 is the S25 PivotBoss pivot, so the 25% extension from the low of the previous month's range. And from there, again, we could be looking at either more weakness, or that could be the perfect spot to trap and reverse. So I'm looking initially for a trap and reverse between 1270 and 1280, but in the near term, more downside into those targets. Alright, that is it for now. We'll see how this plays out heading into the new day of trading. Good luck, trade well, and I will see you in the trading room. Take care.